Sorry, so I was on mute, but thank you so much. That was a great video. And up next, I have Joseph Sharon coming in, who's the Chief Executive Officer and President of Critical Path Institute. He's going to provide some opening remarks.
So, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hello to all of you. And on behalf of the International Neonatal Consortium and everyone at CPAD, I would like to welcome you to the 6th annual INC meeting. Although I wish that we could all be seeing one another in person in Amsterdam, especially as I'm a Dutchman, I'm so happy to be able to join you all remotely during these unprecedented times. I hope that through the great work of our colleagues across the world, we will be able to reunite in person for next year's meeting. Can you show the next slide, please? It is so heartening to see so many of you, parents, physicians, nurses, researchers, and regulators, have joined us in a cause that we all feel passionately about: the health and well-being of neonates. I likely do not need to tell anyone here that neonates are considered therapeutic orphans. The last drug that was approved for neonates was in 1991. Since 2015, INC has been forging a predictable regulatory pathway for evaluating the safety and efficacy of therapies for neonates. INC unites stakeholders such as yourself from hospitals, research institutions, drug developers, regulatory agencies, and patient advocacy and other organizations the world over to develop practical tools that can be incorporated into clinical trials for neonates. Our efforts lead to more successful, efficient, and meaningful trials, and ultimately providing neonatal populations with better treatments and outcomes. Next slide, please. We have had many successes since 2015. In 2017, INC provided recommendations to for developing optimal endpoints for bronchopulmonary dysplasia. In 2018, INC, in collaboration with its industry, academic, and regulatory partners, developed guidelines for the design of rigorous and efficient clinical trials for potential treatments of neonatal seizures. Also in 2018, INC created a retinopathy of premature activity scale for evaluating treatment outcomes in neonatal clinical trials. In 2019, INC created the standardized method of assessing adverse events in neonatal clinical trials so that adverse reporting systems were uniform and tailored specifically to neonates. These are just but a few examples of the many advances INC has made in the field of neonatology. Next slide, please. Through the INC, we will continue our great work by embarking upon an ambitious data strategy which will draw upon CPAD's expertise in data standardization, aggregation, and analytics, as well as our experience in development science to help tackle some of the most challenging concerns in neonates. The initial efforts of this project will target the creation of a real-world data analytics platform. The collection of hospital electronic medical records data to create generalizable laboratory value reference ranges, and the construction of a quantitative natural history model of bronchopulmonary dysplasia. These efforts, while important, are merely the beginning of the advancements that we hope to bring to the neonatal space. With your continued engagement, the future of neonatology research is sure to be bright. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope that you all enjoy the informative set of sessions that we have lined up for you over the next 2 days.
Okay, now it might be better. So, dear colleagues, I too would like to welcome you very much to our annual workshop, and it's very much an honor for me to share with you a couple of thoughts at the beginning of this much-awaited workshop. And as you know, EMA is co-hosting this, and it was originally actually planned to take place in Amsterdam as part of our 25-year celebrations. Due to our relocation from London to Amsterdam, we had to push it further and further back to the end of this year. And now we are all in this situation to practically experience what BCP means. No, it's not yet another condition, but stands for the plain business continuity planning. Therefore, I'm very grateful to all colleagues at CPAS and INC to have made this workshop happen in the virtual space with such an exciting program. Whereas we will not be able to meet in person, seeing the wonderful city of Amsterdam with its cozy spaces next to the canals, I'm very confident that due to your high commitment and engagement, and of all of us, it will be a huge success. Who knows? Perhaps we can even make it happen as a real world meeting in Amsterdam in the future. And I would really be happy to see you in person again. Obviously, I use the opportunity to look back a little bit at the achievements of INC under the guidance of Lynn Hudson, whom I mentioned as a representative of the wonderful team at CPAS. The number of achievements have been so high that I cannot, of course, list them all, but I wanted to highlight at least two aspects of this consortium from my very own personal perspective. Firstly, this consortium enabled to build up a strong community in the neonatal space, supporting and advocating a tailored drug development for our neonates, one of our most vulnerable populations. This is based on the unique expertise and experience of the members of our consortium, embracing in its development ever more stakeholders and leading to synergies in this space. This achievement should not be underestimated, specifically as such a community was lacking in the neonatal field compared to other specialities. Of course, it is not only commitment, expertise, and experience, but trust, which has to be developed to make all of this happen. One can say without hesitation that this was the least hurdle to manage for INC, and that its work earned the consortium high respect and authority. This leads me to the second point, that all the impressive outcomes have not only, we just have heard and seen on the slides, it's a huge list of what has been achieved. And this has not led only to publications in highly respected journals and to contribution to educating all stakeholders, neonatologists, pediatricians, researcher, nurses, and last but not least, of course, also developers in this space. But we can also see direct effects by its outputs being taken into official and much needed guidance for drug developers and also assessors in the various regulatory bodies. An example for such a direct implementation is the development of endpoints for trials to test treatments of neonatal seizures. From the European perspective, it took nearly 10 years after the implementation of the EU pediatric regulation to reach this milestone, and now studies are indeed running using exactly those endpoints proposed and developed by INC. However, as we all know, further progress is still needed. The report of the European Commission after 10 years of the EU pediatric regulation mentions exactly two areas where it has been identified that unmet medical needs have not been fully met and where we see still huge gaps. And this is, from our perspective, mainly in pediatric oncology and neonatology. Therefore, now looking forward and to this workshop, INC shows itself dynamic as ever, carried forward by the new leadership of Kavalit Singh, and will now, by further embracing CPAS' rich experience in data analytics, take it to the next stage, as we have just heard, using real-world data to generate real-world evidence for our neonates. The new unique setup of this consortium and experience it has built up of all participants will ensure a successful workshop to step into a future, allowing us to use new methodologies to support further development in our area. With this, I wish all of us exciting and fruitful discussions during our workshop. And for that, I will now hand over to Tamora, who will lead us into the first session, trial design and execution. Thank you very much.